Sit back and listen to this extremely interesting story. Alex had left work early today for an appointment with his doctor. He had set up his appointment for his annual physical a week earlier. He had mentioned to his physician that he needed some advice about a physical problem of a private nature. He arrived at the clinic, and the pretty young nurse greeted him. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blair. Have a seat, and Dr. Reese will be with you in a few minutes." Alex had seen the young nurse before on other visits to the clinic. She is a very small and petite young lady of Asian descent. Alex had always noticed how much she reminds him of his wife Sandy because of her petite figure. Alex sat down in the lobby and watched a young couple trying to occupy their children while they waited. He picked up the magazine and flipped through the pages. An advertisement for the drug caught his attention, and he read about the symptoms of dysfunction. Alex was quite familiar with the symptoms, the premature termination, and the inability to maintain intimacy. At the end of the page, you are advised to ask your doctor. Alex had been going to his doctor, Janet Reese, for about 6 years now, ever since his old doctor, Dr. Taylor, retired. At first, he wasn't too comfortable about having a female doctor, but since she had taken over for Dr. Taylor, he decided to stick it out. Over time, he became comfortable with Janet as his doctor, and they called each other by their first names. But Alex didn't like the idea of talking to her about his married life, thinking it would be the most awkward moment ever. The nurse opened the door and said, "Alex, Dr. Reese will be ready for you in a moment. You can come on back." Alex followed the pretty young nurse to one of the examination rooms, where she asked him to remove his shoes and shirt. Alex did as she had asked, while the nurse placed his charts on a table. Looking up at Alex as he unbuttoned his shirt and took it off, the nurse blushed slightly and smiled. She then went about taking his blood pressure and temperature. After writing the information on his chart, she left the room, leaving the door opened. She passed by the room several times, always being sure to take a quick glance at Alex with his shirt off. Dr. Reese entered the room and closed the door behind her. She smiled at Alex and said, "I think we better close the door so my nurse can concentrate on her work. I swear these young women these days seem to only think about one thing." Alex noticed that Janet was wearing her street clothes instead of her usual blue scrubs. She was wearing a pair of jeans that fit her tall, slim body quite nicely. For a woman in her mid-40s, she looked much younger. Except for a scattering of silver in her otherwise dark brown hair, she could easily pass for 30. She was wearing a blue shirt that was tailored for her small waist. Dr. Janet Reese put on her reading glasses and looked over his chart for a minute. She turned to look at Alex and put her stethoscope to her ears. As she stood up, Alex couldn't help letting his eyes wander down her long, slim figure. Janet touched Alex's chest with the cold stethoscope and said, "Take a deep breath and let it out. Okay again. Okay, Alex, strip down to your shorts and I will be right back." A couple of minutes later, Janet returned and proceeded with checking his reflexes and some other tests. She crossed the room and reached up into a cabinet and removed a box of rubber gloves. Alex didn't even notice the gloves as his vision was drawn to the doctor's backside as she reached up into the cabinet. A second later, she was standing in front of Alex putting on a rubber glove. Janet said, "Okay, Alex, let's stand up now and drop the shorts." Alex replied, "Come on, Janet. I hope you're not going to do what I think you want to do." "That's right, Alex, you've been putting this off for long enough, but first I want to check to make sure you don't have a rupture." Alex blushed in embarrassment, but reluctantly dropped his boxers to the floor. Dr. Janet bent down and picked them up as he stepped out of them and put the shorts down with his other clothes. She looked at Alex from the front, who seemed to be beginning to feel agitated as she got back to her feet. She said, "There now, that wasn't so bad, was it?" Alex replied, "Maybe not for you, Janet, but this is a little difficult for me. I have never had to strip down in front of a woman doctor before." Janet giggled lightly and continued her examination. "Cough, please." Alex did as she asked. Alex had been through this routine at the clinic before, just not with a female doctor. Janet pulled off the glove but quickly put on another. "Okay, Alex, I want you to turn around now and bend over the exam table." Alex gave her the poor puppy dog look, but Janet would have no part of it. "Alex, turn around and bend over. It won't be that bad, I promise." Alex turned and slowly leaned over the table. He looked back at Janet and asked, "Like this, Doc?" Janet walked around the exam table and instructed Alex to put his hands on the side rails. Then she walked behind him. Since Alex couldn't see her, she stood back for a moment and admired the sight. Alex felt the doctor continue to examine him. "All right, Alex, all done." "You can get dressed now," she said. Alex stood up and turned around as Janet glanced at him and noticed a slight agitation. He hurriedly dressed. Janet smiled at Alex and said, "Don't be shy, Alex. It's normal to be a little nervous when a female doctor does things like that. Trust me, I'm used to it. You seem to be doing well. Did you say that something was bothering you that you wanted to talk to me about?" Alex replied, "Well, Janet, seeing that I am already about as embarrassed as a man can get, I do have something that's been bothering me." Janet replied, "Alex, you have nothing to be embarrassed about with me. I am a doctor. By the way, you're a very good-looking man. Didn't you notice my nurse checking you out? I think she wanted to be in here through the entire examination." After a slight pause, she continued, "Alex, don't put your pants back on just yet. Come sit on the exam table for a minute." Alex sat on the end of the exam table, wearing only his boxers and a pair of white socks. Janet pulled her stool over in front of him and said, "Okay, Alex, talk to me. I'm your doctor and I've heard it all. Get it off your chest and let me help you." Alex replied, "Dysfunction. I think it's about to destroy my marriage. As you know, Sandy is a little younger than me, and she has needs that I can't meet." After a short pause, he continued, "When we spend time together, I either start to lose interest or end the conversation too quickly." Janet was looking intently into his eyes. She could see his pain and thought there was more that he wanted to tell her. Janet's first major was in psychology. She answered, "This is normal for men in your age range, and it's something we can fix, but I think there is more that you want to tell me, Alex." "Why are you afraid that Sandy would leave you?" Alex continued, "Well, this is going to sound a little strange to you. I'll try to keep it short. A few years ago, when we started having problems, Sandy and I started doing a little role playing to add something special. All right, she would like me to pretend to be the postman or the new neighbor, something else. She would have loved it, and it did for me too." After a short pause, he continued, "After about a year of this role play, we started with what we call pillow talk. Generally, if Sandy wants communication, she taps me to check the response. If I'm not excited, she starts talking about some guy checking her out or picking on her. She tells me about these things in such a sensual way that sometimes it makes me excited and we spend time together." Janet asked, "Is there anything else? So far what you told me is perfectly fine. Many people decorate their married life with role-playing games." Alex replied, "More often lately she has been asking me things like if I ever fantasize about her being with other men. Playing along with her one night, I told her it would be okay if she wanted to experience someone else. I didn't think she would take me seriously, but then she started telling me about this guy from work that is always after her. What really worries me is that she told me she finds him attractive and hard to resist. She added that if she was single, she would spend time with him. None of us lived out any of the fantasies, though, as I have said, it usually induces me to intimate intercourse, but even then I have not stamina." Janet was silent for a moment before answering. "There's nothing unusual about what you two are going through. Sandy is younger than you and didn't have the opportunity to explore herself from different angles before starting a family. And couples tend to have less intimate moments over time, but I'm sure I can help you with that." Janet asked Alex, "I would like to do something that could be considered unethical for a doctor. I don't want to lose my license to practice medicine, though. I can't even tell you what I'm talking about, so you would need to tell me that I can do it without knowing what it is. Do you think you could go along with something like that?" Alex answered, "If you can help me, Janet, you can do anything you want me and I will never tell a soul." Janet said, "Okay, Alex, I would like for you to lie back on the exam table." Then she started stroking him lightly with her hand. Alex noticed a shiny diamond ring on the ring finger of Janet's left hand. Only a few weeks ago he was playing golf with her husband. Now here he was telling her about his marital problems. When Alex looked into Janet's eyes, he noticed that she seemed to be watching his bottom. He could feel his excitement rising. "Oh my God," he thought, "she tests me. See how easily I get excited." Janet undressed Alex as his interest continued to increase. Then she went back to the counter and wrote some notes. She pulled on another glove. "Okay, Alex, you're reacting fine so far. Now I'm going to do some work and we'll see how long you can last," she said. Janet began to please him. Alex looked down at her engagement ring again and then down at her figure. He was immediately satisfied. Janet took a damp cloth, cleaned it, removed the glove and wrote a few more notes. Continuing to jot something down in her notes and very professionally, Janet said, "You can get dressed now, Alex. I think I have something that will help you with this problem." As Alex got dressed, she continued, "You're getting a prescription for medication that you'll be taking about an hour before your appointment. Not only will you notice an increase in interest and stamina, but you'll likely gain a bit more volume, the same." Alex replied, "Thanks, Doc. I really think this will get our marriage back on the right track. To tell you the truth, Jan, I'm really glad that I have you for my doctor. I would feel really weird if old Dr. Taylor would have given me that examination." Janet replied, "Don't worry, Alex, old doctor. Taylor wouldn't have examined you the way I did. There is a reason why I decided to help you in this way. You see, there are different causes of dysfunction, and also whether there are different drugs to solve this problem. Most doctors would just prescribe the drug and wait to see if you are satisfied with the results." Janet handed the prescription to Alex and continued, "I was able to determine the best drug for you by first-hand experience. By the way, Alex, I wouldn't normally have done this for just anyone." Alex didn't quite pick up on the fact that Dr. Janet Reese seems to have a thing for him. He just told her thanks for everything and went back out to the nurse's station to cover his co-pay amount. Before he was able to leave, though, Janet came out to the lobby and told him she wanted to see him back in a month. While Alex headed to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, Sandy made herself a margarita and thought about how she should handle her husband. Alex would definitely notice the bruises on her neck, and she decided not to try to hide it. She pulled her hair back into a ponytail so that it was easily seen around her neck. Sandy knew that Alex would not become violent because he had always been very gentle with her during their marriage and let her make all the important decisions. Subscribe to our channel so that your second C gaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.